trust collapses, Hydra rises, and Cap's deadliest enemy turns out to be his oldest friend, one podcast asks the impossible. Would a sorry have saved the day? This is Super Sorry.
Welcome to Super Sorry Takes on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the podcast where we talk superheroes and super apologies.
We're Todd and Amber, creative co-pilots who love to dig into movies, TV, and all the strange storytelling choices that make us yell or sigh at the screen.
What started out as us obsessing over the power of a good apology has turned into our favorite spot to unpack the stories we love through the messy, meaningful lens of who apologizes, who avoids it, and who absolutely should have tried to apologize.
We've started off with the Marvel Cinematic Universe because no one dodges emotional responsibility quite like a superhero. Their leaps of faith, their catastrophes, and their heroic refusal to communicate feelings, it's a whole thing.
We're exploring how apologies shape a hero's journey, in today's case a super soldier's journey, and how those choices echo into real life when trust gets shaken, secrets blow up, or friendships fracture.
Each episode, we break down one MCU movie to ask who messed up, who owned up, and who should have just said, I'm sorry.
We're peeling back the unresolved fallout beneath the armor, what drives their choices, what derails their courage, and how saying or refusing to say sorry reveals who they are underneath all the missions and the manipulation.
And since we leave no secret government agency unexamined, consider this your official spoiler alert. If you haven't watched Captain America, the Winter Soldier, grab your shield and catch up.
We're not experts, just fans with feelings. And if we miss something or get it wrong,
we are super sorry. It's recap time. Before we dive into the surveillance overreach, elevator brawls, and the world's most traumatic reunion, here's our whirlwind tour through Captain America, the Winter Soldier.
And you know the drill. Spoilers incoming. If you haven't watched the movie yet, hit pause and go stream it. If you have seen it but need a quick memory refresh, we've linked Marvel's official Captain America, the Winter Soldier page in the show notes.
The movie opens with Cap doing laps around DC like cardio is a superpower, but the calm shatters when a S.H.I.E.L.D. mission turns sketchy. Natasha's running secret side quests, and Cap realizes he's basically working for a spy agency made of red flags.
Things escalate when Nick Fury gets ambushed in broad daylight by an assassin with perfect aim and a metal arm. Fury barely makes it to Cap's apartment, gives him some good X-Files advice to trust no one before pretending to die.
Cap digs deeper and discovers that S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't just questionable, it's fully Hydra infected. Hydra's plan? Launch 3 heli-carriers that can eliminate threats before they even happen. It's like a callback to Minority Report, but pre-crime with more drones and worse morals.
Enter the Winter Soldier, the masked ghost who keeps showing up to ruin everyone's day. And plot twist, it's Bucky, Cap's childhood best friend, former Howling Commando. Now he's a brainwashed weapon who doesn't even remember his own name.
Cap, Natasha, and newly recruited Sam Wilson, aka Falcon, team up to expose Hydra and take down the heli-carriers. Cue rooftop chases, identity crises, and Cap going full parkour through the buildings, the walls, the windows, whatever's in the way.
Everything comes to a head when Cap refuses to fight Bucky because friendship, trauma, and emotional damage outweigh any mission order. The heli-carriers crash, Hydra crumbles, and Bucky walks away confused, but starting to remember who he is.
With Hydra exposed and Cap sprinting after a brainwashed bestie, it feels like the perfect time for our apology audit.
It's time for the apology audit, where we each identify one fire apology, some might say a super sorry moment, that rare apology that actually hits its mark. And we'll share our misfires, our sorry not sorry moments, the kind of apology that technically existed but went off mission the second it left the character's mouth.
After sifting through every coded sorry, covert half sorry, and emotionally encrypted almost sorry in Captain America, the Winter Soldier, we ended up with a solid tally of of 9 apologies from 6 different people. Because whether you're stopping Hydra or just trying to survive real-life conflict, the right sorry can save the mission, and the wrong one can blow it to pieces.
All right. Apology Audit is activated. Todd, take us into your apology of choice.
Okay, I'm going to actually start with the elevator scene, that big fight scene. It's a pretty good super sorry fire, but also has some like misfires in there too. It's kind of a back and forth a little bit, so it kind of depends how you look at it. But just to kind of remind you, that's when Captain America is in the elevator and he notices that all of a sudden more and more people are kind of joining them, and they're kind of sweating and looking nervous and holding on to their gun. He's kind of thinking, something's up here. This seems weird. And then nope, another group gets on. It keeps crowded in there, ends up being kind of the center of the elevator, and then it sets off with Brock, who is the head of the strike force for S.H.I.E.L.D. He has a little quick, I'm sorry about Fury. It's messed up what happened to him, Cap. And Steve Rogers replies, thank you. So it's kind of a full apology. He's sorry about what happened to him, because I think he generally is probably sorry that what happened to Nick Fury. And, Captain America has a thank you in there. So it's a solid, good intake. But it kind of, it continues on. We're going to get to where I think the fire part is. When Captain America, Steve Rogers, notices everybody about to start something, he kind of gives them a beat to get out if they want to kind of survive this chaos that's about to ensue in the elevator. And it's, before we get started here, does anyone want to get out? So he's basically kind of pre-apologizing for what he's about to do here. And, obviously it kind of kicks off with people attacking him and him fighting back and end up jumping out the elevator. So my fire apology is Captain America pre-apologizing for the fight, the butt kicking that's about to ensue.
All right. I was very much wondering where you were going with this, because I was thinking, okay, there is an apology in this scene, but I wouldn't call it a fire apology. Like, it's a decent apology for sure. But I see what you're saying now. This is a pre-apology. It's an interesting choice. Not what I would have chosen. I do really like this scene. A pre-apology. I'm not sure we've done this before.
Well, I think the other interesting element too is when Brock, the head of the strike force, says to Cap in response to him, like giving everybody a chance to get out. And it's basically, I want you to know, Cap, this isn't personal. Kind of their relationship in the beginning of the movie is set up when they go to the
ship.
The ship. They have some history together. So it shows that probably isn't personal. What he's doing for Hydra as opposed to what's actually happening to, him and Captain America and Nick Fury.
I mean, I guess it's all mission focused, right? But I'm really going to have to think about this one as a pre-apology, as super sorry, or fire apology is the best apology. I'm not sure I completely disagree, but I'm not sure I do agree at all with this idea, because I kind of think is like, if it's our best apology and it's apology that has actually happened, which this isn't an explicit apology. So I'm going to reserve my judgment. You don't have to fight for this right now. I'm just really trying to think this one through a little bit. All right. Well, my top apology, my super sorry moment, is not a main character.
Okay.
In fact, he's just in one scene. And this is the S.H.I.E.L.D. tech who tells Rumlow, I'm sorry, sir, I'm not going to launch those ships. The context leading up to this apology, they're in the S.H.I.E.L.D. control room. Rumlow storms in with his Hydra aligned, strike team, and he orders the technicians to launch the inside heli-carriers. And then, of course, right before this moment, Steve has gotten on the intercom across S.H.I.E.L.D. and told all the S.H.I.E.L.D. employees that Hydra's inside, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s compromised, that this Project Insight that they're supposed to launch is actually a weapon of mass assassination, and that innocent people are going to die. And so it comes down to this technician who is like, I'm not going to do it. And the reason I love this is that he both apologizes for disobeying, but he is standing his ground in a way that is really hard to do in any job, right? Much less this job. So like, he is like basically saying, I'm going to be ethical. I'm not going to kill people. I'm not going to participate in this. He is actually a true hero in this moment. He's just doing what's right. To me, this apology hits home in a way that we don't typically see in these movies, because it's a real person standing up to the bad guy in that moment. So to me, it's kind of like a quiet hero moment, choosing what's right, even when it risks your job, maybe your life, all of it. So to me, like, this was the one that stood out the most.
Yeah, I mean, he's being physically threatened by Brock Rumlow to release the heli-carriers, and he's, standing up to it. And it kind of, for me, that seems really nice in his standing up for, what's right, the computer operator guy. Because I'm kind of wondering throughout the movie, because this whole Hydra undercurrent thing within S.H.I.E.L.D., like how this is all kind of actually works or whatnot, and who's like like who's on what side. And I think even the Sam Wilson Falcon character even asks like, who's the bad guys, who's the good guys. But it's a good scene. Again, like you said, because it's an average person standing up for what they believe in. It kind of has to make a split-second decision and just decides to stand up for what he thinks is right and backs Captain America.
And I would say, arguably, it is the moment that actually makes a real difference for them actually stopping the heli-carriers and stopping this from moving forward, or at least it stalls it long enough to make it possible for them to actually save everyone at the end.
That kind of gives them that hero moment. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to do that because this is like a work example, I suppose, but it's really hard to like stand up and say, no, I think this is wrong, or no, I'm not going to do that, or I won't just do it because you told me to, especially like in settings where it's command down. Certainly some companies are going to encourage you to disagree more, but not all.
You got to pick your battles or whatnot, but that definitely was one I think that he chose correctly and stood up for making the right decision.
All right, well, let's talk about our misfire, our sorry, not sorry apologies.
Yeah, for mine, it's when Steve Rogers goes and visits his old flame, Peggy Carter, who now is much older than him because he's been frozen for many years. Kind of a, overly sentimental scene, and they're having a back and forth conversation. She kind of slips out of her kind of current mindset until maybe dementia, some Alzheimer's or whatever she's dealing with at the time, and she kind of recognizes him again like it's the first time she's seen him in, since he's been frozen. And she, you've been gone for so long. Very touching in some ways, and he kind of gives her an apology without saying, I'm sorry, but he's kind of giving an excuse why he's sorry that he hasn't seen her in a long time. And it's, well, I couldn't leave my best girl. So he's back to see her again. Except for my problem with this is he kind of qualifies it, not when she owes me a dance. So it's kind of a half apology to begin with. And then it's like a total misfire for me because then he kind of puts it on her that, you owe me a dance, you owe me something. So it's like, to me, it's like a sorry, not sorry because you owe me something.
I didn't even clock this as an apology. Does he say sorry?
It doesn't say it specifically, but it's more like he's apologizing for being gone for so long because she hasn't seen him in many years because he's been frozen. Now he's, sorry for not being there, but now he's back. Now he's there to see his best girl.
All right, I'm going to have to think about this one. Well, my sorry, not sorry moment is the scene where Alexander Pierce is holding the World Security Council hostage, and he's trying to explain to them why the World Security Council should accept Hydra's ideology. Like, he's trying to convince them why this is all a really good idea. And the council pushes back on him, calling out Pierce for abuse of power. And then Pierce moves to kill one of the council, and suddenly the woman who's on the council, Councilman Holly, takes down the Hydra guards. She disarms Pierce, and then she reveals herself to be Natasha. And she delivers this kind of sassy, like, faux apology saying, I'm sorry, did I step on your moment? So the reason why this is my choice is she says the words I'm sorry, but she's clearly not sorry. It's meant to be like an insult, and calling out that like she just destroyed him in what was meant to be his big power play. Like, it's a very powerful sorry, not sorry apology. Where yours is a little passive aggressive. Maybe there's some resentment there that Steve has towards Peggy or something. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you're, like I said, yours is by more a textbook example of a sorry, not sorry, where mine is obviously trying to think, through it a little bit more, so it's less clear of like what the intentions are and what the historical purposes of this resentment and whatnot's going on. And Peggy's probably still upset at him for making his choices he did, sacrificed himself years ago, and he has some resentment for her being resented, and who knows what's going on there. So, get into their mind to know exactly what their meaning is. But for me, it's a not sorry, while yours is technically probably the more accurate one, yeah.
So by more accurate, the better one? All right, well, I guess let's vote on our top apology. As a recap, mine is the computer technician who tells Rumlow, I'm sorry, sir, I'm not going to launch those ships. Captain's orders.
And my super sorry pick is the elevator scene with Captain America and the lead SHIELD Strike Force commander, Rumlow, where Captain America and him kind of have a back and forth of their sorry, got some apologies. There is I'm sorry there about what happened to Fury. It's all messed up. And then Captain America's kind of pre-apologizing before, if anybody wants to get out of this elevator before I kick your butt, now's your chance.
Well, I think mine is definitely like the most powerful apology in the movie, especially done by like a civilian, though technically he works for SHIELD. S.H.I.E.L.D., but like standing up to authority and doing what's right.
Well, I mean, I think it's a best sense of the word, a super sorry, because again, he's an average person. That's a pretty powerful thing. So I would agree that yours is the super sorry choice of the day.
And then our choices for our sorry, not sorry moments or misfire apologies. Mine was Natasha's "I'm sorry, did I step on your" moment to Alexander Pierce.
And mine is Captain America to Peggy Carter, that I'm sorry I was gone for a long time, but you owe me a dance, so that's why I'm back.
Such a weird moment. I don't think I even really noticed it watching it, but now you calling it out, it's just like, what's up with that scene?
Yeah. So maybe it's not the best sorry, not sorry, but it's the most awkward. So that's why maybe my mind went there.
You're like, this feels very awkward, and so this must be a misfire.
Yeah, fire. The best misfire scene in the movie, yeah.
Well, yeah, I would agree. It's an odd scene, and I'm not even sure the full purpose of it other than for us to find out what's going on with Agent Carter.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a sorry, not sorry moment.
No, that's probably a fair assessment, yeah.
That's it. We'll post our best and worst apologies online, and as always, we want to know what you think. Up next, apologies that could have been, or as we call it, the super sorryverse. This is where we imagine the apologies that never happened, but maybe should have. So we've covered the apologies that actually made it into the Winter Soldier's twisty, paranoia-soaked story, the ones buried between surveillance programs, rooftop chases, and Steve Rogers trying his absolute best to keep his moral compass from snapping in half.
But let's be honest, a whole lot of sorries got swallowed by classified files, Hydra infiltration, or 70 years worth of emotional backlog.
Which means it's time for apologies that could have been, our favorite detour into the super sorryverse, the timeline where these characters finally face their feelings head on.
That's right. Imagine a world where Nick Fury shares intel and an actual apology in the same conversation.
Or where Natasha stops turning vulnerability into a high-risk operation and just says what she means.
Or where Steve admits that carrying the emotional weight of the entire country isn't a sustainable coping strategy.
These heroes can topple secret organizations, they can outrun masked assassins, they can decode Hydra plots, but a simple "I'm sorry" and suddenly everyone needs backup.
Steve hides behind his principles.
Natasha deflects with her charm, and Bucky, well, the poor guy's emotional hard drive is one update away from total system collapse.
Which is why we're here, to look at the apologies that never happened, but absolutely should have.
The ones that could have eased betrayals, rebuilt trust, and prevented at least one heli-carrier from falling from the sky.
We'll break down what these unsaid sorries reveal about the characters.
And what they tell us about handling conflict in the real world, where most of us are navigating relationships without the help of a super serum.
So let's crack open the first case file.
All right, let's go. My first wish for apology is from Bucky to Steve. And this is in the moments after their fight on the helicarrier, where Steve kind of like sort of backs off from really fighting Bucky, and he saves him when he's pinned underneath the helicarrier debris that is falling. So they fall into the water, and then Bucky rescues Steve, pulls him onto the shore. Bucky's very clearly like confused, he's traumatized, and he's unable to articulate remorse. But like in this moment, the fact that he saved Steve shows that like there's something simmering there. There's like an apology that is maybe felt but never spoken. So what he could have said was something like, "I hurt you. I didn't want to. I didn't know myself. I'm sorry." And to me, why that would have mattered is that it would have given Steve some like immediate emotional reassurance that like this leap of faith that he has taken to like kind of back off on Bucky has worked. And it would also like kind of ground Bucky's actions by showing him fighting against his programming that he's like very clearly at odds with. So I just think it would be a really interesting moment. Like, sure, it was a lot more nuanced by not having any of those words spoken, but like an articulation of that could have made a difference in that moment for Steve and Bucky.
So you're saying that Bucky should be apologizing to an unconscious man laying on the side of the river? Like, I'm confused with how this would actually
He can apologize to an unconscious person. He can still apologize. He could say something.
Maybe he's like saving it for when he's actually awake, and he's like, I'm saving this for later kind of thing. Like his actions of jumping in and saving his life, I feel like that's enough. I don't really know if apology is needed. And then to a conscience body on the side of the river? I don't know.
He's not just a body. He's Captain
He's
America.
Unconscious body on the side of the road. Yeah.
He's whatever. He could still say something.
Yeah. See you later. I'll tell you later that I'm going to apologize. Yeah.
All right. What apology do you wish you would have seen then?
Well, I think another big important one is just Nick Fury to the world for creating this Project Insight with these 3 heli-carriers going around and going to shoot everybody and do this whole get rid of bad people before they do anything bad. Like, did I miss it? It's like, where's the apology with creating this thing that just gets out of its control? And I feel like that's maybe somewhere in there and I missed it. I don't know, but I feel like it's not there.
Well, what I will say is this really touches on what I think is a very dark story point or plot point in this story that it's like pretty much glossed over by the fact that we see all the action around the helicarriers. But like when it comes down to it, the fact that Nick Fury kind of implements this aggressive approach to threats, right? He says that at one point. But then when it becomes really clear that it's targeting people for death based on their data points, bank records, online behavior, voting patterns. So they're basically taking out any potential dissenters. It's so disturbing.
Tens of millions of people are talking about, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the whole thing, like to distill it down to its most basic element, it's like the best defense is a good offense. So they're going on the offense to fight the bad guys not being on the defense. And it's like, this is how we get down this road because the things weren't really thought through. So I think a little apology is what I'm looking for.
I totally agree with this because if Nick hadn't essentially facilitated the opportunity for Hydra to be able to do this, they wouldn't have this moment that they're trying to take to
that can be used in bad ways. Yeah.
Thousands, hundreds of thousands, I'm not even sure the sheer number, I think they say it, but I don't recall, of people who they know will be against Hydra. Yeah. It's so disturbing. And again, totally glossed over, I feel like, when you watch the movie the first time. It's only like on the second and the third watch that I'm like, wait, what? This is so messed up.
Yeah, true. Next one, I'm going to double down on Nick Fury. This time, I think he needs to apologize to Steve and Natasha for faking his death at the hospital. Like, he kind of puts him through an emotional roller coaster there and never really kind of says, sorry, I put you through that. And I'm sure that was hard to witness.
Oh, it was totally messed up. I mean, I think he also owes just Natasha an apology. I mean, I suppose also Steve, but like the fact that he's faking his death, but he's also endangering them by getting them involved in these counter-operative things. There's just a lot going on here that he's holding a lot back from them, and it's creating a lot of problems. It would be nice if he actually acknowledged it. Yeah. He sort of does at a certain point, but I think it could be a more explicit apology.
Yeah, the word spoken, yeah.
I guess another apology I would have liked to have seen, like, again, a little more explicitly, is from Steve to Sam Wilson, Falcon. And when they show up at this place, they do apologize for coming there, basically, and kind of putting him in a bad position. But then he gets involved, like, much more deeply. Again, it's like on a volunteer basis. Steve basically drags him into this scenario where there's like a huge global conspiracy. There's assassins. There's like espionage. There are like Nazi like people running around all of a sudden, which I'm sure is just kind of like got to rock your world in a way that you're not expecting. Like, he just didn't really know what he was getting into.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so like it would have been nice for Steve to acknowledge, like, I didn't mean to pull you into something this dangerous, and then maybe a thank you for like standing by me or something. Yeah, I mean, they do have a nice scene at the end of the movie or whatever. I think Steve says like on your left or on your right. Whatever.
Well, I mean, that's a good point. They never really apologized for that. At the beginning of the movie, he kind of keeps showing him up, running laps around him, and on your left, and it's kind of obviously infuriating Sam Wilson, but he's still doing it and doesn't even apologize for that. So I don't know if he's going to go the extra step with the bigger needed apology that you're referring to.
I can still wish for it.
Yeah. We're doing a lot of references to the first Captain America here, so I'm going to do another one, something I brought up in that episode, which was that Steve Rogers does not jump into the canyon after Bucky falls into it. He's a super soldier. He can drop down there and save him. And here we actually, in this movie, we learn that Bucky survived himself because of his super serum. So obviously Captain America could have survived the jump and the fall as well. In this movie, we see Captain America jumping out of elevator buildings, crashing through windows and laying on concrete floors. He's jumping out of airplanes without parachutes and hitting the water. Like, these are pretty hard landings here. He could have made that canyon drop, so he still needs to apologize, even more so, for not jumping in and saving Bucky. Now he's turned into Winter Soldier. If he just would have jumped in after them, none of this would have happened.
All right, Todd. Jeez. Wow. Okay.
Nothing to rebut there, no?
Really holding on to some stuff.
Yep.
Well, my last apology that I wish I would have seen would have been Alexander Pierce apologizing to Nick Fury for the betrayal. Something along the lines of like acknowledging that he used his trust to get what I wanted, and I'm going to do everything I have to do to protect it. And I know what I'm doing hurts people, but I'm going to continue to do it. To me, I actually think this one would have made sense because even though I don't expect an apology from Pierce, he was like overly trying to explain to the World Security Council why this is good. So I could kind of see in this moment why he would even say to Nick, like, hey, I kind of respected you in some ways, but I still used you. Would have been interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Any other apologies you'd like to have seen, Todd?
Did I mention the one about Captain America jumping in the canyon? I think I did. So I think maybe that's it for me. Yeah.
Okay. Well, these unsaid apologies could have eased betrayals, softened decades of hurt, or maybe even kept a few helicarriers from turning DC into confetti.
Which raises the big question, what actually makes an apology work?
Well, honesty helps.
True, but I think humility definitely helps.
Yep, and being brave enough to drop the emotional armor. I think that's probably the real mission.
Which is probably where our Winter Soldier keeps slipping.
Yeah, Steve means well, but he treats vulnerability like it's a classified threat.
Natasha delivers honesty in just, 5-word fragments, and it's usually after a car chase.
And Fury, if emotional clarity were a security level, I think he'd hide it behind a biometric scan.
What's interesting is how close they got to the accountability, even if the actual apologies never made it out of their mouths.
Growth in this movie isn't about heroics or big speeches. It's those tiny cracks in the armor when someone almost lets the truth out.
Which brings us to the fun part. What do you think?
Up next, Damage Diary, where we tally the wreckage and ask the real question. How much of this destruction was Hydra's fault, and how much was caused by a handful of emotionally avoidant operatives refusing to talk it out? Welcome to Damage Diary, the segment where we tally the wreckage, estimate the repair bill, and ask how many federal buildings would still be standing if everyone in this movie had just talked about their feelings one time.
Winter Soldier doesn't just give us spy intrigue, it levels Washington, D.C. like someone hit restore default settings on the whole city.
First up, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s headquarters. 3 helicarriers ricochet off each other, crater into the Potomac, and rip through the headquarters like chaos with a flight plan. The battle ends with the entire launch bay flooded and whole chunks of the building breaking apart.
Translation, this isn't a call your contractor situation. This is a whole city council emergency session situation.
Exactly. And if you map this kind of damage onto real world construction costs, you're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars, easily climbing toward the $1 billion+ mark once you factor in structural collapse, flooding, and replacing enough glass to make the National Cathedral jealous.
Then we have the freeway ambush, where Hydra turns a normal Tuesday commute into a metal twisting spectacle, and major traffic backups, turning a DC commute into an absolute chaos.
In real life, even a single damaged overpass can cost millions to repair. Add in dozens of totaled cars, you're looking at the kind of bill that makes your insurance app crash.
And then there's the collateral damage near the S.H.I.E.L.D.'s headquarters. Shockwaves, debris, broken windows for blocks, whole offices flooded. People are coming back to work like, why is my cubicle now part of an aquarium?
If you price out repairing just a cluster of the downtown buildings, that's another tens of millions just trying to get the lights back on and the mold out.
So when you add it all up, the S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters collapse, the helicarrier pileup, the freeway disaster, the neighborhood cleanup, we're talking a damage total somewhere between astronomical and... Did Hydra reimburse anything?
Realistically, that means the overall total is somewhere around $300 million to $1.2 billion in range.
Which is wild because the rest of us freak out over a parking lot fender bender, and these folks casually cause city-sized catastrophes.
That's right. Once again, we come back to the regular people who have to deal with the fallout. Because beyond the price tag, Damage Diary is always about the everyday people. Commuters whose Tuesdays turned into a Hydra ambush, and anyone who had to take PTO because because their car got flung off the freeway.
And for every heroic shield throw, there's someone sweeping up drywall muttering, "Great, guess I'm the one staying late to deal with this mess."
All right, well, let's get into it. My first bystander pick is Renata, Pierce's housekeeper, who was murdered by Pierce for accidentally overhearing Hydra business. She goes back into the house to grab her phone, and she apologizes even. She even says, "I'm sorry, Mr. Pierce, I forgot my phone." And Alexander Pierce just says, "Oh, Renata, I wish you would have knocked." And then he picks up the gun and shoots her. So to me, of course, this is our top horribly impacted innocent bystander. Certainly, we don't always have innocent bystanders that meet this fatal of a moment this clearly in an MCU movie. I think it's one of the only ones I can think of in the movies we've discussed thus far that are really impacted in this way.
Yeah, it's a very direct A to B situation that happened there. The result, cause and effect, her coming back in and him having to shoot her. So I'm never 100% clear on, there's some shadowy figure he's talking to in the kitchen. So, and she sees that, that's a death sentence somehow. I don't know. Is Winter Soldier that well known that if you see him that that Pierce is a bad guy? I don't know. Seems a little extreme.
Well, I think what it does, though, is show Alexander Pierce's ruthlessness, that he's not willing to let anything get in his way, right?
Yeah, everybody's sacrificial lambs for his ultimate Hydra scheme to kind of take world power.
Yeah. And this moment, more than any of them, kind of struck me as kind of what the vision that the filmmakers had, the Russo brothers. I know in my research, they intentionally shifted a tone, I guess, into more of a spy thriller direction, which is definitely different. But I think when we see that too, we see these regular people get impacted. It was a very scary moment that he's willing to take out anyone for his agenda. So
yeah, I think it's the whole espionage element. That's kind of how the Nick Fury character becomes such a bigger part of this movie than some of the previous ones or whatnot. And that's going to be my damage diary pick here, is that Nick Fury's kind of carelessly plowing into bystander cars as he's trying to get away from the people shooting at them. He's just running people off the roads, knocking into buses, getting people shot at and hurt. And he's, thinking of number one himself and putting a lot of people in harm's way.
And this is early in the film when he's in the SUV and he gets ambushed, right?
The black, SUV,
when you really realize that he is under attack, just a high level of danger all around. So yes, absolutely. Lots of bystanders impacted during that SUV ambush. There's other moments that are really similar, I would say, when there's the highway pedestrians and drivers, when there's the Winter Soldier ambush and fight scene. I do like this one because I think this is where Natasha, you can actually hear her voice calling for the fact that civilians are in danger. So at least they are acknowledging that at the moment.
I think she even says get out of the way, which is wow. It's shocking to hear that they're thinking of somebody else besides themselves.
Yeah, some real communication around the civilians, which is great. But, there's massive city level damage and grenades, machine guns, exploding vehicles, cars are flipping, there's freeway piles up and civilian vehicles destroyed. So just very chaotic, almost like a war zone happening on what is a public road.
And why is it always a bus getting involved? Every Marvel movie, there's some sort of street chase and it ends up with a bunch of people on the bus getting impacted. It's always a full bus that's getting shot at, or the bus is getting knocked over, or something's going on. It's times Captain America gets knocked off of the overpass and falls down, to the underpass, the road below, and into the bus. It's always a bus.
You got to up the ante. Well, public transportation is a real thing, Todd.
I know, but it makes you not want to take it. If it's every instance you're on the bus, there's something going on there.
We've also, I don't know if they're fully innocent, but we've got the World Security Council members who were held hostage at gunpoint by Pierce, which we talked a little bit before. We've got people in the hospital after the post-Fury attack. There's all these folks around that could maybe be impacted by what's going on with S.H.I.E.L.D. or Hydra. You don't really know. Tensions are high.
And I want to kind of mention a bystander, in a positive way. In Captain America is visiting his display at the museum, and he sees a little kid that notices him, and he asks the kid not to mention that who he notices, and the kid doesn't say anything. How excited is this little kid? And he's like, "Oh, that's a hero moment." He didn't say anything to anybody around him. There's Steve Rogers, Captain America, right there.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
There is also another funny moment, our Stan Lee cameo of this movie. movie.
again, yeah.
He is in that same museum. Stanley is playing a security guard who discovers that Cap's World War II suit is missing, and he groans, "Oh man, I am so fired."
Probably.
Yeah, so it was pretty funny. I will say, I also did a double take at the narration voice in the museum exhibit. I almost thought for a moment that was Stan Lee, like, disguising his voice. I'm like, is he doing the voiceover? But he's not. I looked it up. It's actually Gary Sinise who does the audio.
Oh, okay. It's definitely a recognizable voice, but never really placed it myself, yeah.
And that's Damage Diary. Proof that in the Winter Soldier, even a routine spy mission can end with collapsed headquarters, the kind of car carnage no commuter is prepared for, and at least one poor office worker discovering that a helicarrier wing is now where their cubicle used to be.
Up next, our biggest takeaway, because beneath the explosions, the conspiracies, and the world's most intense best friend drama, this story has a lot to say about trust, truth, and the apologies no one quite manages to get out.
Captain America, the Winter Soldier, gives us a hero trying to find solid ground in a world where the truth keeps shifting underneath him. Steve walks into this story believing in clear lines: good guys, bad guys, mission, purpose. And he ends up wrestling with something much harder: how to stay honest and human when the people around you are hiding secrets, fear, and walls they won't name.
Because beneath all the conspiracies and chase scenes is a quieter fight, one where friendship, trust, and vulnerability matter just as much as the next mission. Our biggest takeaway?
You don't need a vibranium shield or a spy organization imploding around you to practice honesty. In real life, choosing truth can be as small as saying what you really mean instead of hoping somebody reads your mind. Steve can't erase Hydra's lies or Bucky's trauma or Fury's paranoia, but he can choose clarity over confusion, courage over silence, and connection over avoidance.
Because being a hero in the Winter Soldier isn't about jumping off buildings or taking down helicarriers, it's about facing hard truths. Natasha learning to trust someone besides herself, Fury realizing secrets have limits, and Bucky beginning to question the story that shaped him.
And that's something we can all take with us. Breaking our own patterns doesn't always require a dramatic showdown. Sometimes it can start with just one honest sentence. And that's it for Captain America, the Winter Soldier. The helicarriers are down, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s headquarters are a total construction zone, and what's left is a Steve who finally knows what he's fighting for and who he wants to fight with.
Today we explored the apologies that landed, the ones that fell apart, all woven into a story about rebuilding trust when it feels impossible. Because even when your past tries to pull you back into old versions of yourself, there's always a chance to choose a different way.
But what do you think? What apology stood out to you the most? Or who do you think had the hardest time saying the thing that needed to be said?
Hit us up on social media and let us know. You'll find our links in the show notes, or head to supersorry.com to join the Super Sorry Club.
As always, thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with someone who loves superheroes or apologies.
On the next episode of Super Sorry, we're blasting off to Guardians of the Galaxy, where a ragtag crew of outlaws accidentally team up. An Infinity Stone becomes everyone's worst impulse purchase, and Peter Quill tries to charm his way through a universe that is absolutely not buying it.
There's dance-offs, prison breaks, family-found chaos, and at least 3 characters who desperately need a crash course in emotional communication before they touch anything explosive.
Join us next time as we dig into the misfits, the mayhem, and the apologies that could have smoothed out an entire galaxy's worth of misunderstandings.
Until then, I'm Amber.
I'm Todd.
And we are Super Sorry. Super Sorry is written and hosted by Amber and Todd. Produced by a Super Sorry LLC. Music by Jam Studio. Special thanks to MCU Wiki, Industrial Light and Magic, and Wikipedia for serving as sources for Damage Diary. Your support helps us keep asking the hard questions and saying the hard apologies. Thanks for tuning in and sharing with friends. And if you're listening from DC, S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, or a helicarrier at the bottom of the Potomac River, we are Super Sorry.
One last thing. There's a scene in here at the beginning of the movie when Sam Wilson is giving recommendations to Captain America about what he should do, like what he should read and catch up on of all the years he's been frozen. He kind of talks about the Marvin Gaye soundtrack, Trouble Man, that he should write down, and he writes it down and looks at the list. You kind of can see some different things, and there's some movies, Star Wars, Star Trek, Rocky, the moon landing, and different things. And also in there, kind of in the middle, is Thai food. So maybe he's opened up his his culinary choices since the last movie, that he's willing to try some international flavored food.
Super Sorry is not affiliated with Marvel Entertainment, Marvel Studios, the Walt Disney Company, or Disney Plus. As of this recording, all Marvel characters mentioned in this podcast are the property of the Walt Disney Company.